Fear has a way of creeping in when the future looks uncertain. It whispers doubts in the night, paralyzes decisions, and drains hope. The unknown can feel overwhelming, making it easy to wonder, where is God in all of this? How do we trust Him when nothing seems certain? Scripture reminds us that fear is not from God. 2 Timothy 1:7 declares, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind." Fear is a thief. It steals peace, joy, and confidence. But faith anchors the soul, even when the waves rise high. The Israelites knew what it was like to stand on the edge of uncertainty. After escaping Egypt, they found themselves trapped between the Red Sea and Pharaoh's advancing army. The people panicked, crying out in fear, believing death was inevitable. But Moses spoke words that still echo today. "Do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today." Exodus 14:13. Faith over fear. And then God made a way where there was no way. The sea parted, and the Israelites walked through on dry ground. What seemed like the end was only the beginning of God's miraculous provision. Uncertainty is not an invitation to fear. It is an opportunity for faith. Consider the story of Peter walking on water. In Matthew 14, the disciples were caught in a storm. Waves crashed against the boat, the wind howled, and suddenly they saw Jesus walking toward them on the water. Terrified, they thought he was a ghost. But Jesus reassured them, "Take courage, it is I, don't be afraid." Matthew 14:27. Peter, bold and full of faith, responded, "Lord, if it's you, tell me to come to you on the water." And Jesus said, "Come."
For a moment, faith triumphed over fear. Peter stepped onto the waves, walking toward Jesus. But then he looked at the wind, at the storm, at the impossibility of it all, and fear took over. He began to sink.
"Lord, save me," he cried. Immediately, Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. "You of little faith," he said, "why did you doubt?" Fear grows when eyes are fixed on the storm. Faith grows when eyes are fixed on Jesus. Throughout Scripture, God's people faced impossible situations: giants, armies, fiery furnaces, and lions' dens. But over and over again, the message was the same: "Do not fear, for I am with you." Isaiah 41:10. Faith is not the absence of fear. It is choosing to trust God despite it.
Abraham had to trust when God told him to leave his home without knowing where he was going. Hebrews 11:8. Joshua had to trust when God told him to march around Jericho's walls instead of fighting. Joshua 6:2-5. Esther had to trust when she risked her life to approach the king. Esther 4:16.
Faith does not demand understanding. It simply believes that God is in control.
Jesus himself demonstrated this in Gethsemane. The weight of the cross lay before him, and he prayed in anguish, "Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me, yet not my will, but yours be done." Luke 22:42. He chose faith over fear, surrendering to the Father's plan.
And because of his faith, salvation was secured for the world. God never promised a life free of trouble, but he did promise his presence. When fear knocks, faith answers with the unshakable truth that God is still on the throne. Psalm 46 verse 1-2 reminds, "God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea." Fear says, "What if?" Faith says, "Even if." Even if the future is uncertain, even if the storms rage, even if the answers don't come immediately, God is still faithful. The world is full of uncertainty, but the character of God never changes. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Hebrews 13:8. When fear rises, faith must rise higher, and in the end, God will always prove that trusting him was never in vain.